The chains that had bound him for 300 years suddenly dissolved into liquid metal, pooling around his massive claws as the dragon rose to his full height for the first time in centuries. The human girl, barely a speck before his enormity, stood her ground, empty soup bowl in hand, eyes wide with wonder rather than fear. Neither of them could have predicted how a simple act of kindness would rewrite the future of two species forever. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. I always love chatting with you, and it really helps support the channel. Also, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. In the border mountains between the human kingdom of Terrasol and the unexplored territories beyond, a small village named Crestfall clung to the steep slopes like moss to stone. It was here that 17-year-old Alara Thorne spent her days helping at her father's apothecary shop, grinding herbs and brewing remedies while dreaming of adventures she'd never have. With her wild auburn hair often escaping its practical braid and curious green eyes that missed nothing, Alara was known throughout the village as both a gifted healer and an incurable dreamer. Alara, the deliveries won't make themselves, her father called from the front of the shop, his voice carrying the patient exasperation of a man who had repeated the same reminder 1,000 times. Coming. Alara quickly finished packing the last of the medicinal bundles, wrapping dried valerian root in waxed paper. The morning routine was as familiar as her own reflection. Prepare the orders, deliver them to the villagers, collect herbs from the mountainside on the way back. As she stepped out into the crisp mountain air, Alara breathed deeply, savoring the scent of pine and wild thyme. The village was already bustling with activity, smoke rising from chimneys as blacksmiths, bakers, and weavers began their day's work. She adjusted her worn leather satchel and began her rounds, exchanging friendly greetings with familiar faces. "Morning, Alara. How's that cough remedy working for old man Weber?" called Mrs. Finch from her bakery window. "Much better. He's barely wheezing now," Alara replied, handing over a small jar of honeyed ginger paste. "This should help with your husband's sore throat." By midday, her deliveries were complete, and Alara headed for the mountain paths to gather fresh herbs. This was her favorite part of the day, the solitude of the forest, the treasure hunt for rare medicinal plants, and the freedom to let her mind wander beyond the confines of Crestfall. Today, however, something pulled her further up the mountain than usual. A strange sensation tugged at her awareness, like a half-remembered dream or a melody just beyond hearing. Before she realized how far she'd strayed, the trees had thinned, and she found herself in an unfamiliar ravine, walls of dark stone rising on either side. "I should turn back," she murmured to herself, but the peculiar feeling only intensified. It was then that she noticed a narrow cleft in the rock face, barely visible unless you were standing at just the right angle. Curiosity overwhelmed caution, and Alara squeezed through the opening. The passage widened into a vast cavern, and Alara's breath caught in her throat. Sunlight streamed through cracks in the distant ceiling, illuminating what should have been impossible, a creature of legend, bound in gleaming metal chains. A dragon, not the monstrous beasts of children's nightmares, but something far more ancient and terrible in its majesty. Its scales were the deep blue-black of the night sky, with an iridescent sheen that shimmered like distant stars when it moved. Great wings were folded tight against its body, bound by chains that glowed with strange runes. Its head, larger than Alara's entire body, rested on massive forelegs, eyes closed as if in slumber. Alara should have run. Every rational thought screamed at her to flee, to alert the village, to bring back the kingdom's soldiers. Instead, she took a step forward, then another, until she stood just beyond reach of those massive jaws. Are you alive?" she whispered, her voice echoing softly in the cavern. One eye opened, a vertical pupil surrounded by a ring of molten gold, and fixed upon her with ancient intelligence. "So the humans finally send a child to gawk at their prisoner," the dragon rumbled, its voice like thunder rolling over distant mountains. "Have you come to mock, little one? Or perhaps to slay the beast and claim glory?" Alara swallowed hard, her throat suddenly dry. "I didn't know you were here. No one knows. I just found you." The dragon's eye narrowed with suspicion. 3 centuries I've been bound by your kind's magic and treachery, And you expect me to believe you stumbled upon this prison by accident? 300 years. Alara gasped. That's impossible. There are no records of dragons in our kingdom for at least 5 centuries. The last one was Viridian the Wise, who made peace with your ancestors before mysteriously vanishing. The dragon finished. I am Noctis, son of Viridian, betrayed by the very humans my father trusted. Alara's mind reeled. Every child in Terrasol knew the tale of Viridian, who had taught humans the secrets of healing magic before returning to the Dragon Lands. But no story had ever mentioned a son or betrayal. I don't understand, she said. Why would humans imprison you? And why doesn't anyone know? Noctis shifted, chains clanking ominously. Power and fear, little human. The same reasons your kind does anything. My father's gifts made your healers mighty, but some wanted more. They lured me with promises of alliance, then bound me with chains forged from my father's scales, a perversion of his gifts. They meant to force from me the deeper magics, those my father had wisely withheld. But why keep it secret? Why not tell everyone they'd captured a dragon? Because they failed, Noctis growled. I revealed nothing, and those who imprisoned me could not admit their treachery. So they spread tales that the last dragons had left these lands, while they continued their attempts to break me in secret. Eventually, they died, passing their shameful legacy to apprentices who carried on their work. But as generations passed, even those who knew of me dwindled, until none remembered the dragon beneath the mountain. Alara stood in stunned silence, trying to process this revelation that rewrote her understanding of her own people's history. And you've been alone all this time? For 300 years. Something flickered in the dragon's gaze, a momentary softening. Time passes differently for my kind. But yes, the solitude has been difficult. Before Alara could respond, her stomach growled loudly, reminding her that she'd been so busy with deliveries she'd skipped her midday meal. Embarrassed, she reached into her satchel and pulled out the food she'd packed, a clay pot of hearty vegetable soup, still warm thanks to the heating stone her father had enchanted for her. I'm sorry, she said, both for her stomach's interruption and for the dragon's plight. Are you hungry? Noctis made a sound that might have been a laugh. Dragons do not need to eat as often as humans, little one. These chains drain my magic to sustain me, keeping me weak but alive. It is a crueler fate than starvation. Alara looked down at her simple soup, feeling foolish. Oh, of course. I just thought. She trailed off, unsure what she had thought. That she could offer comfort to an ancient magical being with leftovers? The dragon studied her, confusion evident in its gaze. You truly did not know of me. And yet, you show concern for my comfort rather than fear of my power. You are unusual. I should go, Alara said suddenly, reality crashing back. It's getting late. My father will worry. She backed away, nearly stumbling over a rock. I won't tell anyone about you, I promise. Wait. Noctis called as she reached the crevice. What is your name, human child? She hesitated, torn between caution and a strange feeling that withholding her name would be a betrayal of trust. Alara. Alara Thorn. The herbs in your bag, Alara Thorn. You are a healer? An apprentice. My father is the village apothecary. The dragon's eyes gleamed with renewed interest. Then perhaps our meeting was not chance after all. Return tomorrow, if you dare. Bring your herbs. I would speak with you further. Alara nodded, though she wasn't sure why. Then she squeezed back through the crevice and ran down the mountain, her mind whirling with impossible revelations and the golden gaze of a creature she had believed existed only in stories. That night, sleep eluded her. She tossed and turned, replaying her encounter with Noctis. Was she going mad? Had she imagined the whole thing? And if not, what did the dragon want with her herbs? More troubling still was the moral quandary. If Noctis's tale was true, a great injustice had been committed by her ancestors. But dragons were powerful, potentially dangerous creatures. What if releasing him brought destruction upon her people? By morning, curiosity and a strange sense of responsibility had won out. After completing her deliveries in record time, Alara packed her satchel with every medicinal herb she could find, along with another pot of soup, rabbit and wild mushroom this time. She told herself the soup was for her lunch, but somehow knew she would offer it to Noctis again, regardless of his need for it. The journey to the hidden cavern seemed shorter today, her feet finding the path as if drawn by an invisible thread. When she slipped through the crevice, Noctis was waiting, golden eyes following her as she approached. "You returned," he said, surprise evident in his rumbling voice. "I was not certain you would." "Neither was I," Alara admitted, setting down her satchel. "But I couldn't stop thinking about what you told me. About the betrayal and being forgotten here." Noctis shifted, chains scraping against stone. "Show me your herbs, young healer." Alara laid out her collection. Bundles of dried herbs, fresh cuttings from the morning's gathering, jars of prepared medicines. "What are you looking for?" "Knowledge," the dragon replied. "Your people learned the healing arts from my father, but the understanding has degraded over generations. I wish to see what remains." For the next hour, Alara explained each herb's properties as she had been taught, while Noctis listened intently. Occasionally, he would correct her or expand upon her knowledge with insights that made connections she'd never considered. "You have the makings of a true healer," he said finally. "Not merely following recipes, but understanding the deeper principles." Alara flushed with pride, then remembered the soup. "I brought food again. I know you said you don't need it, but—" She shrugged, feeling foolish again. To her surprise, Noctis lowered his great head. "I will accept your offering, Alara Thorn. It has been centuries since I tasted anything but the bitterness of captivity." The sight of a majestic dragon delicately sipping soup from her small clay pot was so absurd that Alara couldn't help but laugh. Noctis raised his head, offended at first, then made a rumbling sound that she realized was his own version of laughter. "It is good," he admitted, "though I could consume 1,000 such pots and barely satisfy my hunger. Tomorrow I'll bring a bigger pot," Alara promised without thinking. "And what would you ask in return for such generosity?" Noctis inquired, suddenly serious. "Humans always want something." Alara considered this. "Knowledge," she decided. "Teach me what my ancestors have forgotten about healing. The true legacy of Viridian." The dragon studied her for a long moment. "A worthy request. Return tomorrow, and our exchange shall begin in earnest." And so began a strange apprenticeship. Each day, Alara would complete her regular duties, then slip away to the hidden cavern. She brought food, always starting with soup, which had become their tradition, and Noctis shared ancient wisdom about healing plants, the flow of life energy, and the delicate balance between magical and physical remedies. Weeks passed, and Alara's skills grew remarkably. Her father noticed the improvement in her preparations, but attributed it to her natural talent and dedicated practice. Meanwhile, she began experimenting with the dragon's teachings, creating remedies that worked with astonishing efficacy. What she didn't notice was how her daily visits affected Noctis. The dragon who had first greeted her with suspicion and bitterness gradually softened. He spoke more of his life before captivity, of soaring through storm clouds and visiting distant lands. Sometimes, when she prepared to leave, she thought she saw loneliness in those ancient eyes. Then came the day that changed everything. A mining accident trapped a dozen men beneath a collapsed tunnel. When they were finally rescued, several were critically injured. Alara's father worked tirelessly, but one miner, Jensen, a kind man with 3 young children, was slipping away despite their best efforts. "His internal bleeding is too severe," her father said grimly. "There's nothing more we can do except make him comfortable." That night, as Jensen's family kept vigil by his bedside, Alara made a decision. She gathered specific herbs Noctis had taught her about, prepared them according to his instructions, and infused the mixture with her own energy as he had shown her. The resulting elixir glowed with a faint blue light. When she offered it to Jensen, his wife looked desperate enough to try anything. By morning, the miner's condition had stabilized miraculously. Within 3 days, he was sitting up and talking. Within a week, he was walking. The village buzzed with talk of the miracle cure. Some called it divine intervention, others suspected forbidden magic. Alara's father questioned her relentlessly about the treatment she'd administered, recognizing ingredients and methods he'd never taught her. "Where did you learn this, Alara?" he demanded. "These techniques haven't been seen since." He stopped abruptly, his face paling. "Since when, father?" she pressed. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Since the time of Viridian." Alara's heart raced. What if not all dragon knowledge was lost? What if I told you I've been learning from a source with direct connections to those ancient teachings? Her father gripped her shoulders. "Listen to me carefully, Alara. There are things about our kingdom's history that few know. Dangerous things. If you've found some old text or, worse, if you've met someone claiming connection to dragon lore, you must tell me immediately." She pulled away. Why? So the knowledge can be suppressed again? So healing that could save lives remains forgotten? "You don't understand the risks," he insisted. "Promise me you'll stay away from whatever source you've found until we can discuss this properly." Alara made a non-committal noise and fled to her room, her mind in turmoil. For the first time, she questioned whether Noctis had told her the complete truth. If her own father, the gentlest man she knew, reacted with such alarm, perhaps there was more to the story than a simple betrayal. The next day, she confronted Noctis directly. "My father knows something about dragons and forbidden knowledge. He was frightened when he recognized the healing techniques you taught me. What aren't you telling me?" The dragon's eyes narrowed. "Your father is wise to be cautious. Dragon magic is powerful and can be dangerous in untrained hands. But ask yourself, have I taught you anything that caused harm? Or have I shared knowledge that saved a man's life?" "That's not a complete answer," Alara insisted. "Why would my father, a healer dedicated to saving lives, fear dragon knowledge unless there was good reason?" Noctis was silent for a long moment. "The magic I've taught you is but a fraction of what dragons know. Some arts, particularly those involving life and death, creation and destruction, are indeed dangerous. Your ancestors sought not healing but power, the ability to command life itself, to extend their short human spans, to create and unmake at will. Such power corrupts even the noblest heart. And you? What would you do with your power if you were free?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. "First, I would return to my own kind, who surely believe me long dead," Noctis said finally. "Then I would consider what justice requires for 3 centuries of imprisonment. Justice or revenge?" Alara asked quietly. "Is there a difference after what was done to me?" Alara had no answer. She left earlier than usual that day, troubled by doubts. For the first time in weeks, she didn't bring soup. That night, soldiers arrived in Crestfall, members of the Royal Arcanum, the kingdom's elite force of warrior mages. Their leader, Commander Darius, came directly to the Thorn Apothecary. "Master Thorn," he addressed her father formally. "Reports have reached the capital of unusual healing magic in your village. Magic with draconic signatures." Alara's father stepped protectively in front of her. "My daughter has a natural gift. Nothing more." The commander's gaze shifted to Alara. "Young lady, the use of unauthorized magical techniques is a serious offense. If you've discovered some ancient text or artifact, the crown requires you to surrender it immediately." "I haven't found any texts or artifacts," Alara replied truthfully, heart pounding. "Then how do you explain the miraculous recovery of the minor Jensen?" Witnesses describe a glowing blue elixir, a characteristic of dragon-infused healing that hasn't been seen in centuries. Before Alara could respond, her father intervened. "My daughter combined several traditional remedies based on my teachings. Any unusual effects were likely due to the specific combination of herbs and her natural talent." Commander Darius looked unconvinced. "We'll remain in Crestfall for a thorough investigation. In the meantime, neither of you are to practice any healing arts without supervision." He turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing. There have been reports of unusual seismic activity in these mountains. Tremors too regular to be natural. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" "No, sir," Alara's father replied firmly. "The mountains have been quiet." After the soldiers left, her father rounded on her. "What have you done, Alara? Who have you been meeting? Tell me now, before this gets worse." Faced with her father's fear and the threat of the Royal Arcanum, Alara broke down and confessed everything. Finding Noctis, their daily lessons, the soup she always brought him. Her father collapsed into a chair, his face ashen. A living dragon. All this time, he buried his face in his hands. "You don't understand what you've set in motion, daughter." "Then explain it to me," she demanded. "Noctis said he was betrayed and imprisoned for knowledge he wouldn't share. Is that true?" Her father's eyes were haunted when he looked up. "Partially. The royal histories claim Viridian's son came to our ancestors offering greater powers than his father had shared, but the magic was corrupting. It drove those who used it mad with power lust. They bound Noctis not out of greed but necessity, to to prevent him from spreading dangerous arts to others. And you believe that version? I don't know what to believe anymore, he admitted. But I know the Royal Arcanum will tear these mountains apart stone by stone to find the source of dragon magic. And when they find Noctis, he didn't need to finish. Alara understood the implication all too well. I have to warn him, she whispered. Alara, no? It's too dangerous. If the Arcanum catches you, they'll what? Imprison me? Like Noctis has been imprisoned for 300 years. She grabbed her satchel. I can't leave him ignorant of the danger. I owe him that much, at least. Before her father could stop her, she slipped out the back door and raced toward the mountain path, cloaked by the darkness of night. Behind her, lights bobbed in the village as soldiers began their search. The night was clouded, offering Alara some protection as she climbed the familiar path toward the hidden ravine. Each shadow seemed to harbor a soldier, every rustle of leaves the footsteps of pursuit. Twice she had to hide as Arcanum patrols passed, their enchanted lanterns casting unnatural blue light through the trees. When she finally reached the crevice, she squeezed through with trembling hands and entered the cavern, breathless. Noctis, she called, her voice echoing in the vast space. You're in danger. The Royal Arcanum is here. They're searching for you. The dragon raised his massive head, chains clanking. So, the remnants of my jailers finally remember their prisoner. His golden eyes fixed on her with a strange intensity. Did you bring them here, little healer? No, I would never. Alara was hurt by the accusation. They came because I used your healing techniques to save a dying man. They sensed the dragon magic. Noctis's expression softened marginally. Of course, the betrayal was never yours. He shifted his weight, causing the chains to groan against stone. What do you intend now? To help them find me? To ease your conscience by warning me before my execution. I want to free you, Alara said, the words tumbling out before she'd fully formed the thought. I don't know how, but what was done to you was wrong. No matter which version of history is true, 300 years of imprisonment is too cruel a punishment. The dragon studied her for a long moment. Why would you risk yourself for me? Your own people would name you traitor. Because it's the right thing to do, she said simply. Then, more softly, and because you're my friend. Something flickered in Noctis's ancient gaze, surprise, perhaps, or a deeper emotion Alara couldn't name. These chains were forged with powerful magic, he said. They cannot be broken by physical force. They draw their strength from dragon scales perverted by human sorcery. There must be a way, Alara insisted, examining the massive metal links. The runes etched into them pulsed with a sickly green light, and she felt ill just looking at them. What about the knowledge you've taught me? Is there something in the healing arts that could counteract this magic? Noctis was silent for a moment. Perhaps. The chains corrupt the natural flow of energy. Healing magic restores balance. But it would require power beyond what you possess, little one. Then teach me, Alara said, determination hardening her voice. Teach me everything you know, not just the safe parts. The very knowledge my captors sought, Noctis observed. Are you certain you wish to follow their path? The difference is intent, Alara replied. They wanted power. I want justice. The dragon's rumbling laugh held no humor. Many atrocities have been committed by those claiming justice as their banner. But, he paused, considering her with those ancient eyes. I believe your heart is true, Alara Thorn. We will try. Over the next 3 nights, Alara snuck away from the village to learn from Noctis. The dragon taught her deeper aspects of healing magic, how life energy flows through all living things, how to sense the currents of power, how to channel her own essence to mend not just physical wounds, but magical ones. By day, she maintained a facade of cooperation with the Arcanum investigations, watching with growing anxiety as they expanded their search area toward the hidden ravine. Her father, though clearly terrified for her safety, helped maintain her cover, telling the soldiers she was assisting him with preparing remedies for their men. On the 4th night, Commander Darius himself followed her. Alara led him on a winding path through the forest before doubling back and losing him in a dense thicket. By the time she reached Noctis, she was exhausted and frightened. They're getting closer, she told the dragon. We're running out of time. Then tonight we must attempt to break the chains, Noctis declared. Are you prepared, young healer? What I ask will drain you severely. Alara nodded, setting down her satchel. From it, She withdrew a large iron pot, the biggest her family owned, normally used for festival stews, filled with a special soup she had prepared according to Noctis's instructions. It contained not just nutritious vegetables and meat, but also rare herbs with magical properties, all infused with her own healing energy during the preparation. "Your last meal as a prisoner," she said, managing a smile despite her fear. As had become their ritual, Noctis lowered his great head to sip from the pot. This time, however, Alara placed her hands on either side of his massive jaw and began to channel her energy directly into him, using the soup as a conduit. The liquid glowed with increasing brightness, from gentle blue to blinding white. Alara felt the drain immediately. It was as if her very life force was flowing out through her fingertips, leaving her cold and weak. Her vision tunneled, darkness creeping in from the edges, but she gritted her teeth and continued. "Enough," Noctis rumbled, pulling back. "You will kill yourself." "No," she gasped. "We have to break the chains tonight. The Arcanum will find this place by tomorrow." "Alara, I'm not finished," she insisted, placing her hands directly on the nearest chain link. The runes burned against her palms, sending pain shooting up her arms, but she pushed past it, focusing on what Noctis had taught her, finding the corrupted flow of energy and redirecting it, healing the very magic that formed the chains. Time lost meaning as Alara worked. She was vaguely aware of Noctis speaking to her, his voice seeming to come from a great distance, but she couldn't make out the words. Her world narrowed to the pulsing runes beneath her hands and the struggle to maintain the healing flow despite her rapidly depleting strength. Just as her consciousness began to fade, Alara felt something new, a surge of energy flowing back into her, warm and powerful. Noctis had joined his strength to hers, creating a circuit between them. Together, they pushed against the chain's magic. With a sound like ice cracking on a spring lake, the first link began to splinter. Green light poured from the fractures, then shifted to blue, then brilliant white. The change spread from link to link like wildfire, racing along the chains that bound the dragon's limbs, wings, and neck. "It's working," Alara cried, though the words emerged as little more than a whisper. The final chains burst apart in a shower of liquid metal that pooled harmlessly around Noctis's claws. The dragon rose to his full height for the first time in centuries, his wings unfurling to brush the cavern ceiling. He was even more magnificent than Alara had imagined, sleek and powerful, radiating an aura of ancient magic that made the air itself seem to vibrate. Alara swayed on her feet, darkness closing in. The last thing she saw before collapsing was Noctis turning toward her, concern in those golden eyes. She awoke to gentle movement and cool night air against her face. Opening her eyes, Alara found herself cradled in one of Noctis's forelegs, pressed securely against scales that shimmered with starlight. Below them, the world passed in a blur of darkness and scattered lights. They were flying. "You're awake," Noctis observed, his voice vibrating through his chest against her body. "Good. I feared I had taken too much of your strength." "Where are we going?" Alara asked, too weak to feel properly terrified about soaring through the night sky on the back of a dragon. "Away from those who would hunt us," Noctis replied. "I could not leave you behind. The Arcanum would have discovered your role in my escape." Reality crashed back with alarming force. "My father. I have to go back for him. They'll punish him when they find out I'm gone." "Your father fled the village shortly after you left tonight," Noctis assured her. "I sense him traveling north, away from the soldiers. We will find him once we are safe." Relief flooded through her, followed by a wave of gratitude for her father's foresight. "How did you know?" "Dragons have ways of perceiving distant events, especially concerning those connected to us. And you, Alara Thorn, have forged a powerful connection indeed." She felt warmth spread through her at his words, though whether from the dragon's magic or her own emotions, she couldn't tell. "What will happen now? Where will you go?" "First, to the Spine Mountains beyond the kingdom's borders. My kind have hidden enclaves there. After that," Noctis paused. "Much has changed in 3 centuries. I must learn what became of my father, of our kind. And then, perhaps, it will be time to restore proper relations between dragons and humans, not based on secrets and power, but on mutual respect. Will I see you again?" Alara couldn't keep the sorrow from her voice. Noctis's chest rumbled with what might have been laughter. See me again? Alara Thorn, you mistake my meaning. Where I go, you go, unless you wish otherwise. You have earned a place among dragon friends, a title not granted in 500 years. More than that, you have earned my personal debt. I would teach you all that my father taught your ancestors, and more besides. Hope replaced sorrow in an instant. You mean I could learn to be a true healer? With all the dragon knowledge? If that is your wish. Though I warn you, the path will not be easy. The Arcanum will hunt us both. And dragon magic requires discipline and dedication beyond what most humans can sustain. Alara thought of her simple life in Crestfall, the daily routine of the apothecary, the limited horizons, the knowledge that her existence would never extend beyond the village boundaries. Then she thought of soaring through the skies on Dragonback, learning ancient secrets, perhaps even meeting others of Noctis's kind. I want to learn everything, she declared. They flew through the night, the stars wheeling overhead, the world spread out below like a dark tapestry punctuated by the occasional glow of human settlements. Alara drifted in and out of consciousness, her body still recovering from the magical exertion of breaking the chains. Dawn found them gliding over a vast forest that stretched to the horizon, the trees painted gold by the rising sun. In the distance, jagged peaks rose like the teeth of some enormous beast, the Spine Mountains, Alara presumed. We will rest soon, Noctis told her. There is a valley ahead where we will be safe for a time. As they descended toward a hidden clearing beside a waterfall, Alara felt a strange mixture of terror and exhilaration. Her old life was gone, perhaps forever. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, and wonders beyond imagining. I don't even have a change of clothes, she said with a slightly hysterical laugh. Dragons are not without resources, Noctis replied. And you will find that many problems which seem insurmountable to humans have simple solutions when viewed from a dragon's perspective. They landed beside a crystal-clear pool at the base of the waterfall. Noctis set Alara gently on a sun-warmed rock, then moved to drink from the pool, his massive form reflected in the still water beyond the splash of the falls. Rest, he instructed. Recover your strength. Later, we will find your father and make plans. Alara nodded, suddenly overwhelmed by exhaustion. She curled up on the rock, which retained the perfect amount of warmth from the morning sun, and was asleep within moments. Her dreams were vivid and strange, flying through storm clouds, wandering vast caverns glittering with crystals, facing a council of dragons with scales of every hue imaginable. Through it all ran a sense of purpose and belonging she had never felt before. When she awoke, the sun was high overhead, and she found herself covered by a light blanket woven from some unfamiliar silky material. Beside her rested a pack containing clothing, a water flask, and several bundles of dried food. Dragon resources? She asked, looking up at Noctis, who was lounging in the shade of a large tree nearby. There are hidden caches throughout these lands, maintained for centuries, he explained. Dragons have always prepared for contingencies. You mean war with humans? Among other possibilities. Noctis stretched his wings briefly, then folded them back against his body. Your kind is not the only threat dragons have faced, nor the most dangerous. Before Alara could ask what could possibly be more dangerous than humans, Noctis raised his head sharply, golden eyes fixed on the northern sky. We have company, he said, voice low. Remain still. A dark shape appeared against the blue, growing larger as it approached. Another dragon, Alara realized with a mixture of awe and apprehension. This one was smaller than Noctis, with scales of deep emerald green that caught the sunlight like polished gems. The green dragon circled once overhead, then descended to land at the far edge of the clearing. It regarded them with eyes of brilliant amber, head tilted in what appeared to be curiosity. Noctis, son of Iridian, the newcomer called, voice higher and melodious compared to Noctis's rumbling bass. A female, Alara guessed. I am he, Noctis responded, though I am surprised to be recognized after so long an absence. Your resemblance to your sire is unmistakable, the green dragon replied, taking a cautious step forward. I am Sylvia, daughter of Evernor. Your father and mine were clutchmates. Evernor, Noctis repeated. I remember him well. He had a fondness for riddles and mountain peaks. Sylvia's posture relaxed slightly. Indeed. He still does, though age has made him even more cryptic and irritable. Her amber gaze shifted to Alara. You keep interesting company, cousin. Few dragons consort with humans these days. This is Alara Thorn, Noctis said, moving protectively closer to the young healer. She freed me from 3 centuries of imprisonment at human hands. She is under my protection and has earned the title of Dragon Friend. Sylvia's eyes widened. Imprisoned? We believed you dead, killed in the Great Severance when your father withdrew our kind from human lands. The Great Severance? Noctis repeated. I know nothing of this. Alara listened intently as Sylvia explained how, 3 centuries ago, Viridian had returned from human territories deeply troubled. He spoke of betrayal and a terrible choice, then declared that dragonkind must withdraw from all contact with humans. He established new laws forbidding interaction between the species and led most dragons to remote, hidden territories. Some believed your father acted out of grief for your loss, Sylvia concluded. He never spoke of you directly, but the elders say a light went out of him that never returned. He lives still, in the highest reaches of the crystal spires, but rarely descends or speaks with others. Noctis was silent for a long moment, absorbing this revelation. My father lives, he said finally, voice thick with emotion, and he severed ties with humans because of what was done to me. It seems so, Sylvia agreed. And now you return, with a human companion, no less. This will cause quite a stir among the elder dragons. I must see my father, Noctis declared, and I must tell him what Alara has done. Perhaps it is time to reconsider the severance. Sylvia looked doubtful. Many dragons have grown comfortable with isolation. They will not welcome a return to human affairs. Her gaze returned to Alara, more appraising now. Though I admit, if there are more humans like this one, perhaps limited contact might be worth the risk. First things first, Alara interjected, finding her voice at last. We need to find my father. He's in danger because of me. Sylvia's head tilted again. A human concerned for family rather than dragon knowledge or power. Interesting indeed. Will you help us? Noctis asked. I will do more than that, Sylvia decided. I will take you to the crystal spires myself. But the human's father must come too. If we are to reconsider our relationship with humankind, let us begin with those who have proven themselves worthy of trust. Over the next 3 days, dragons and human worked together to locate Thomas Thorn. Sylvia, able to fly unnoticed due to her smaller size and forest green coloration, scouted ahead while Noctis and Alara followed more cautiously. They found the apothecary hiding in an abandoned woodcutter's cabin near the border of the neighboring kingdom, exhausted but unharmed. The reunion between father and daughter was tearful and joyous. Thomas had indeed fled Crestfall shortly after Alara, taking only what he could carry and leaving false trails to confuse the Arcanum. When he saw Noctis in all his freed majesty, the apothecary dropped to his knees in awe. I believe the old stories, he admitted, that dragons sought to corrupt humanity with dangerous knowledge. But seeing you now, hearing what you did for my daughter, I have been wrong all my life. Many humans and dragons have been wrong, Noctis replied gently. Perhaps it is time for both our kinds to learn new truths. Their journey to the crystal spires took another week. Alara and her father rode on the backs of their dragon companions, traveling by night and hiding by day. Along the way, Alara practiced the healing arts Noctis continued to teach her, while Thomas shared his own considerable knowledge of herbs and remedies with both dragons. The crystal spires proved to be aptly named, a range of mountains with peaks of translucent crystal that caught the light and scattered it in rainbow patterns across the valleys below. Within these mountains, Alara discovered, lay the hidden realm of dragonkind, vast caverns and protected valleys where hundreds of dragons made their homes. Their arrival caused a sensation. Young dragons followed at a distance, whispering among themselves at the sight of humans riding dragonback. Older dragons watched with suspicious eyes from high perches. A delegation of elders met them in a great amphitheater carved from living stone, demanding explanations. Noctis told his story, the betrayal, the imprisonment, the centuries of solitude, and finally, Alara's appearance with her simple offering of soup and kindness. When he described how she had risked her life to free him, using healing magic to break chains of corruption, many of the elder dragons exchanged troubled glances. She used healing arts to counter dark magic, one ancient blue dragon observed. Viridian always maintained that was impossible. That corruption, once established, could not be reversed. He was wrong, Noctis stated firmly. Or perhaps humans have changed. Either way, the Great Severance was built on incomplete understanding. A murmur ran through the assembled dragons. The Blue Elder raised his voice above the noise. These matters cannot be decided here. We must consult Viridian himself. Accompanied by the Council of Elders, Noctis led their small party up winding crystal paths to the highest peak of the range. There, in a cavern whose walls were etched with the history of dragonkind, they found Viridian. The ancient dragon was enormous, easily twice Noctis's size. His scales faded from what must once have been brilliant gold to a soft, pearlescent white. When he turned at their entrance, Alara gasped. One of his eyes was the same molten gold as his son's, but the other was milky white, blinded by some old injury. "Father," Noctis said, his voice suddenly that of a younger dragon. Viridian went utterly still. "My son," he whispered, the sound like wind through ancient bones. "My son lives." What followed was a reunion so powerful that Alara felt like an intruder witnessing it. Father and son touched foreheads, wings enfolding each other, while low draconic words were exchanged too quietly for human ears to catch. When they finally separated, Viridian's good eye fixed on Alara with terrible intensity. "You, human child, come forward." Heart hammering, Alara approached the ancient dragon. Up close, she could see the network of scars across his chest and neck, evidence of battles long past. "You freed my son," Viridian stated. "With healing magic taught to your kind by me, then presumed lost." "How?" Alara swallowed hard. "Noctis taught me. But the magic was always within us, I think. Humans just forgot how to access it properly. And what would you do with this knowledge now? Claim power? Demand recognition? I want to heal," Alara said simply. "That's all I've ever wanted. To help where I can, to ease suffering. The same thing you wanted when you first taught humans, I imagine." Viridian's good eye blinked slowly. "Indeed." He turned to the assembled elder dragons. "I have maintained the severance for 3 centuries because I believed humans irredeemable, that their nature inevitably corrupted even the purest knowledge. I see now that I judged an entire species by the actions of a few." "What would you have us do?" asked the Blue Elder. "Return to human lands? Risk capture and exploitation again?" "No," Viridian replied. "But neither should we hide forever in fear. I propose a middle path. Selected humans, those who prove themselves worthy like this young healer and her father, may learn from us again. And in turn, perhaps we might learn from them. A Dragon Academy," Noctis suggested, "where knowledge flows both ways." "And who would judge which humans are worthy?" another elder challenged. "I will," said Alara, surprising herself with her boldness. "I understand both worlds now. With guidance from Noctis and Viridian, I can help find others like me, humans who seek knowledge for healing and understanding, not power." The debate continued long into the night, but in the end, Viridian's authority carried the day. A new compact was established, the Academy of Balanced Healing, where selected humans would learn from dragons and dragons from humans, each respecting the other's strengths and perspectives. The first students arrived 6 months later, healers, herbalists, and wise women from remote villages, each vetted carefully by Alara and Thomas. The Royal Arcanum sent threats and hunting parties at first, but their power waned as common people increasingly turned to academy-trained healers whose remedies worked miracles without the high costs or political entanglements of royal magic. Years passed. The academy grew, and with it, understanding between the species. Alara became its heart, developing new healing techniques that combined human intuition with dragon wisdom. Noctis remained by her side, her constant companion and dearest friend, their bond growing deeper with each passing season. One evening, as they watched the sunset from their favorite crystal spire, Noctis nudged her gently with his snout. "Do you ever regret it? Leaving your village behind?" Alara, now a woman of 30 with streaks of silver in her auburn hair, smiled. "Not for a moment. Though sometimes I do miss my father's little shop." Thomas Thorne had passed away the previous winter, peacefully and surrounded by those he loved. His legacy lived on in the Academy's extensive herbal gardens, and the generations of healers he had trained. I have been thinking, Noctis said carefully, about the nature of the bond between us. Oh, Alara raised an eyebrow. In their years together, she had become adept at reading draconic expressions, and she recognized his current one as uncharacteristically hesitant. Dragons live for millennia, he continued. Humans for mere decades. It is troubling to contemplate. Alara felt a pang in her heart. She had considered this disparity often as she watched her father age while Noctis remained unchanged. Are you trying to prepare me for your inevitable grief, or suggest a solution? Noctis's golden eyes met hers. There are ways, ancient magic, rarely used, for dragons to share their lifespan with those they value above all others. Are you proposing to me, dragon? Alara teased, though her heart raced at the implication. In a manner of speaking, Noctis rumbled, his scales taking on a faint iridescent sheen that Alara had learned signified draconic embarrassment. The ritual requires deep compatibility and mutual consent. It has not been performed with a human in recorded history. But you think it could work for us? My father believes so. Our connection is unique. Alara thought of the years they had spent together, the challenges overcome, the knowledge shared, the quiet moments of companionship. She thought of what it might mean to live for centuries instead of decades, to see the academy grow from fragile beginning to established institution, to witness the slow healing of the rift between their species. Would I grow scales? She asked, only half joking. Noctis made the rumbling sound that was his laughter. No, but you would gain certain draconic traits, extended life, resistance to illness, perhaps heightened senses. And I would become more attuned to human emotions and perspectives. So we would become more alike while remaining different, Alara mused. A balance. Indeed, like the balance we seek to restore between our kinds. Alara leaned against his warm scales, watching as the first stars appeared in the deepening blue of twilight. When do we begin? The ritual took place on the spring equinox, when the balance between light and darkness was perfect. In the highest chamber of the crystal spires, surrounded by dragons and human academy members, Alara and Noctis forged a bond unprecedented in either species' history. As the ancient words were spoken and magic flowed between them, Alara felt a profound shift, not just in her body, which tingled with new energy and vitality, but in her perception. She could sense the life force in every being around her, could taste the currents of magic that flowed through the world like invisible rivers. Most precious of all, she could feel Noctis's presence in her mind, not intrusive, but a comforting awareness, like knowing a loved one is in the next room even without seeing them. In the centuries that followed, the academy flourished. Humans and dragons worked together to heal not just bodies but the long-standing wounds between their societies. The Royal Arcanum eventually disbanded, its manipulative magic replaced by the balanced teachings of academy healers who served all people regardless of status or wealth. Alara never regretted her choice. Though she watched generations of human students grow old while she remained vital, she found joy in passing knowledge forward and seeing the world gradually transform. And always, Noctis was by her side, her companion, her balance, her dearest friend. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, they would reminisce about their beginning, a frightened girl with a pot of soup, a bitter dragon in chains, and the simple act of kindness that had changed everything. I still don't understand why the soup mattered so much, Alara would say. You didn't need food. The chains sustained you. And Noctis would make his rumbling laugh. It wasn't the soup itself, little healer. It was that you offered comfort to one you should have feared. You saw me as a being worthy of kindness, not a monster to be chained or a power to be used. In 300 years of imprisonment, no one had done that. Just by treating you like a person deserving of soup, Alara marveled. Sometimes, Noctis would reply, the simplest acts of humanity are the most powerful magic of all. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.